If you've ever told a coworker when you're planning to retire, or mentioned your savings balance to a family member over dinner, this video is directly relevant to your financial security. Those conversations feel completely harmless in the moment. They almost always do. But they carry real consequences that most people don't recognize until something has already gone wrong. There are 8 specific things you need to stop disclosing after 55, and we are going to walk through every single one of them today. The FTC estimated that elder fraud cost Americans $81.5 billion in 2024. That figure extends well beyond hackers and phishing emails. A significant portion of it traces back to something someone said out loud to the wrong person at the wrong time. Number 1 is your retirement timeline. This one catches a lot of people off guard because it genuinely sounds like harmless workplace conversation. You have been working toward this for decades. You are finally getting close, and it comes up naturally with someone at the office. The moment those words leave your mouth, your standing inside that company begins to shift in ways you will not always see coming. The organization's internal planning quietly starts to account for your departure, and everything from project assignments to headcount decisions begins to reflect that. According to the AARP, 64% of workers over 50 have experienced some form of age discrimination. Announcing your retirement timeline accelerates that dynamic significantly. Training dollars migrate to employees who are staying, and when the company needs to reduce headcount, someone who has already flagged their own departure becomes the easiest cut on the list. There is a fair counter-argument that surfaces often in discussions like this. Getting laid off near retirement can actually be financially advantageous. Severance pay and unemployment eligibility are both real benefits, and the case for welcoming a layoff has genuine merit when you are within a few months of your planned exit anyway. The real damage from announcing early occurs over a longer horizon, sometimes a 2 to 5 year runway, when you are still in your peak earning years. Being passed over for raises and bonuses during that window is money that does not come back. Keep your timeline private, and when you are genuinely ready to go, give professional notice. The decision about when you leave should be yours. If you find this kind of content useful, subscribing to this channel takes about 2 seconds, and it helps us keep making videos at this level. That brings us to number 2, and it connects directly to the workplace risk we just described. Because the same dynamic that plays out with colleagues and employers also plays out inside your own social circle. The moment people understand what you are worth. Your net worth and your savings balance are the 2 pieces of financial information that change relationships the fastest and rarely in the direction you want. The FBI has reported that 68% of elder fraud losses came from incidents involving more than $100,000. These are not opportunistic, small-dollar scams. They are deliberate, targeted operations aimed at people who clearly have accumulated something significant. When you mention your 401k balance at a dinner table, you are not just sharing a number. You are signaling your position as a potential target, and that information does not stay at the table. It moves. Someone mentions it to someone else, and that person mentions it again, and before long, your financial picture is circulating through a social network you cannot track or control. Adults over 70 who fall victim to financial fraud lose a median of $1,000 per incident, compared to $417 for people in their 20s. The gap is not explained by older adults being less careful. It is explained by the fact that they have more to take, and more people in their extended orbit tend to know about it. The family dimension is where this one causes the most lasting damage. The moment a relative learns a specific number attached to your name, the nature of your relationship with them quietly reorganizes around it. Suddenly, you can afford to help with this situation. You could co-sign on that. There is an emergency that seems to have your name on it. The expectations do not usually arrive as direct demands. They arrive as pressure, as guilt, as the slow erosion of a relationship that used to be about something else entirely. Keep your financial picture between yourself and the professionals who have a legal obligation to protect it. Your financial advisor, your CPA, your estate attorney, and the immediate family members who genuinely need that information for planning purposes. That is the full list. And if the idea of your savings balance being exposed through casual conversation sounds unlikely, the next item on this list is one that almost everyone has shared without thinking twice, because it feels like public information when it absolutely is not. Your Social Security benefit amount is number 3, and most people share this one without any hesitation at all. It is a government program. The number feels administrative rather than personal, and it comes up naturally in conversations about retirement planning. But your monthly benefit figure reveals your approximate lifetime earnings history. Pair that with your age and your general location, both of which the people around you already know, and you have handed a determined scammer a surprisingly complete profile to work from. Government impersonator fraud, targeting Social Security, Medicare, and the IRS consistently ranks among the highest loss categories for adults over 55. What makes these calls so effective is specificity. A caller who already knows your full benefit amount, your correct name, and your city does not sound like a random scammer running a mass operation. They sound like someone with legitimate access to your file. That level of convincing detail is exactly what separates a call someone hangs up on from a call that costs someone their savings. And the volume of these attempts is staggering. Research shows that 27.7% of adults aged 55 and older receive 11 or more suspicious communications per week, not per month. Per week. At that frequency, even a highly skeptical person is going to encounter a scenario that is constructed well enough to create doubt. The practical defense here is straightforward. Treat your benefit amount the way you would treat your bank account balance. Share it only with the advisors who need it for planning purposes, and do not discuss it in social settings where the information can travel beyond your control. One additional layer that the comment sections on videos like this one consistently validate: the government does not call you to verify your benefit status or threaten suspension of your payments. They send letters. If you receive a call from someone claiming to represent any federal agency and asking you to confirm personal information, the right move is to hang up and call the agency directly using the number from their official website, which connects directly to number 4. Because the instinct to protect your financial information from strangers outside the family often exists alongside a completely opposite habit inside the family, where people share detailed inheritance and estate plans with the people they love most, believing it is the responsible thing to do. Number 4 is your inheritance and your estate plans. This is the item on the list that generates the most complicated feelings, because the impulse behind it is genuinely good. Sitting your adult children down and explaining what they can expect from your estate feels like responsible parenting. It feels like giving them a practical head start so they can factor it into their own planning. The problem is that the information does not function the way you intend it to once it is inside someone else's mental budget. When a child learns they will receive a specific asset or a specific dollar amount, that figure tends to get quietly folded into their own financial decisions almost immediately. They may carry more personal debt than they otherwise would, operating on the assumption that a future transfer will eventually fill the gap. They may delay building their own savings because a meaningful inheritance is already on the horizon. Consider a scenario where 2 siblings are each told to expect $250,000 when their parents pass. One sibling continues building their own retirement savings regardless. The other buys a larger house and makes career decisions with that expected transfer as a mental safety net. If a serious health event depletes the estate before any distribution happens, the impact on that second sibling is not just disappointment. It is a structural gap in a retirement plan that was never actually built. That scenario is not a remote possibility. The average annual cost of a private nursing home room in the United States now exceeds $90,000 per year. A multi-year care event can fundamentally restructure an estate, and the family members who were told what to expect are now watching what they mentally counted on disappear in real time. What follows is rarely handled gracefully. Resentment builds, old tensions surface, and sibling disputes over informal promises that were never documented become surprisingly common. 67% of Americans die without a formal estate plan, which means that in many of these situations, a kitchen table conversation is the only record that exists of what was supposed to happen. Work with an estate attorney and formalize the plan inside a living trust. A will guarantees probate, which is a court-supervised process that becomes a public record and can stretch for months, sometimes considerably longer when family members disagree. A properly structured living trust bypasses that process entirely, operates on your specific terms, and does not require your beneficiaries to know the details in advance. Let your family know that a plan exists and that it is professionally handled. The specific numbers are not information they need to carry. Which brings us to number 5, and it involves a habit that is nearly universal among people preparing for retirement, one that comes from a place of genuine care, but quietly dismantles the security infrastructure your financial institutions have spent considerable resources building. Sharing your passwords and account login credentials with adult children, just in case something happens, feels responsible. In practice, it is one of the most exploitable financial vulnerabilities a person over 55 can create. The intention is completely understandable. You want someone you trust to be able to access your accounts in an emergency. But what that decision actually does is bypass every authentication layer your bank and brokerage have in place. Once someone outside your household holds your credentials, every fraud detection system your institution has built becomes effectively bypassed. The compounding risk is significant because most people reuse the same password, or close variations of it, across multiple platforms. Sharing one login can, under the wrong circumstances, open simultaneous access to your email, your brokerage, your banking, and your medical records all at once. 1 in 10 seniors experiences identity fraud every single year, and people over 60 accounted for $4.8 billion of the $47 billion in total identity fraud losses recorded in 2024. These numbers are not explained by older adults being reckless with strangers. Research from the National Council on Aging consistently finds that family members are the perpetrators in nearly 60% of elder financial abuse cases, with adult children representing the most frequently identified offender category. Sharing account access with someone you love removes exactly the structural protections designed to catch misuse before it becomes irreversible. The right solution does not require anyone to hold your passwords at all. Most major password managers now include an emergency access feature that allows a designated person to request entry after a verified waiting period, with the account holder retaining the ability to deny that request while still capable of doing so. The more comprehensive option for genuine financial access is a properly drafted power of attorney, prepared by an estate attorney, which provides structured and legally accountable authority over your affairs without exposing your actual credentials to anyone. And setting up that power of attorney correctly leads directly to number 6, because the conventional advice about this document focuses almost entirely on choosing the right person to hold it. The more overlooked risk is who else you tell about it once it exists. Most people who establish a power of attorney understand that they are giving someone meaningful legal authority over their financial and medical decisions if they become incapacitated. What fewer people consider is the dynamic that forms the moment others in their lives learn who holds that authority and what it covers. Once that information circulates, you have identified a pressure point. Anyone who wants to influence decisions about your assets now knows exactly who to approach and what leverage might work on them. The structural vulnerability here is significant. The vast majority of power of attorney arrangements carry no built-in court supervision whatsoever. There is no judge reviewing transactions, no independent oversight confirming that the decisions being made align with your actual wishes. Research indicates that up to 60% of older adults with cognitive impairment experience some form of elder abuse, and financial exploitation consistently ranks among the most frequently documented categories. Under a standard unsupervised power of attorney, that kind of misuse can continue for months before anyone with standing to intervene even recognizes what is happening. The family dimension of this one is where it becomes genuinely complicated. When one sibling holds power of attorney and the others are aware of the arrangement, every financial decision made on your behalf becomes subject to competing interpretations. The designated person faces pressure from multiple directions. Your interests get filtered through family agendas, and the structure that was created to protect you quietly becomes a source of ongoing conflict instead. The solution is to work with your attorney to include what is called a springing clause in the document. This provision requires a formal physician certification of incapacity before the power of attorney activates at all, which removes the possibility of premature or contested use. The person you designate should know the document exists and where to find it. Your attorney retains a copy. Beyond those two, the specific details of who holds that authority do not need to enter any family conversation. The reason that information discipline matters so much around your power of attorney arrangement points directly to number 7, because your health conditions carry the same dual exposure risk, one at the professional level and one in the broader social environment, and both have financial consequences that most people significantly underestimate. At the professional level, disclosing a health condition after 55 creates a perception problem that is genuinely difficult to walk back. The workplace consistently rewards the projection of reliability and sustained capability. After 55, that evaluation is already operating with a background scrutiny that would not apply to a younger colleague in the same role. When a health condition enters the professional picture, it tends to shift how managers and team leaders quietly assess long-term planning around your position. Responsibilities migrate under the language of workload balancing. High visibility assignments move toward people who represent fewer variables in the planning timeline. These adjustments rarely surface in any documented conversation, but they extract real financial cost during the years when your earnings carry the most weight in your final savings push, and any pension formula that factors in peak compensation. The second exposure track is more immediate. Health information that circulates through your social network creates a specific targeting signal for a category of fraud that most people do not associate with privacy violations. Calls arrive presenting as Medicare supplemental representatives, specialty treatment coordinators, or wellness benefit programs, and they open with detail that sounds internal. The caller is not guessing at your situation. That information traveled through the same informal channels that carry financial gossip, and it becomes the credibility hook that keeps someone engaged long enough to begin extracting something valuable. Health-related impersonator fraud targeting people with known medical situations has grown steadily in recent years precisely because personal health information moves through social circles more freely than financial data typically does. The practical boundary is not complicated. Your health information belongs with your doctors, your spouse, and the family members who are directly involved in your care. It does not belong in the workplace unless a specific condition directly limits your ability to perform a clearly defined job function. And even in those cases, the disclosure should be structured and handled through proper HR channels rather than shared informally with a manager or colleague. The discipline required to keep your health information contained connects directly into number 8, which is where all 7 of the previous items stop being independent concerns and start acting as a single compounding exposure. The months immediately before and immediately after you retire are among the most financially vulnerable of your entire life. Not because anything has gone wrong, but because everything has finally gone right. Rollovers, lump sum pension distributions, severance payouts, and stock option liquidations can move more liquid capital through your accounts in a single quarter than you have managed at any previous point in your career. Investment fraud operators specifically target this window because they understand the behavioral reality of it. Large sums sitting in recently opened or newly consolidated accounts, held by someone navigating an unfamiliar financial structure for the first time, represent a combination of access and uncertainty that is extremely difficult to exploit at any other life stage. It is a genuinely counterintuitive truth that the moment your decades of careful saving finally become accessible is also the moment your financial exposure peaks. The social pathway is the one most people underestimate. Consider someone who posts publicly on their last day at work, sharing the moment with the celebration it genuinely deserves. That single post confirms retirement, which signals to anyone paying attention that a major account transition is either in process or recently completed. Pair that with any prior disclosure about savings balance, benefit amount, or estate expectations, and a surprisingly complete financial portrait exists in the public record. This is precisely where all 8 items compound into one. Someone with context across several of these categories does not need to commit a sophisticated fraud. They simply need to recognize an opportunity, and the timing of a major financial transition provides exactly that. Handle the mechanics of your retirement quietly. Work through every account decision with your advisors before moving anything, and wait until your new financial structure is fully settled before making the transition public in any form. The principle underneath all 8 of these items is the same one. You spent years building something significant through careful, deliberate decisions. The financial habits that built that security deserve to carry forward into protecting it. Staying quiet about your timeline, your savings, your benefits, your estate plans, your account access, your legal arrangements, your health, and your transition window is not an act of distrust toward the people in your life. It is a recognition that the most consequential financial chapter you will ever navigate deserves the same level of discipline in how it is communicated as it required to build in the first place.